Okay, well, good morning and welcome to this sharing time. We're going to share MyOpenMath, which is an excellent OER resource. Thank you for coming. It looks like we have a total of 24 people right now. I think some more will be coming on. So we're going to have an hour and 15 minutes, and we have a guest that I'm excited about. I've been in a couple meetings with him throughout the years, Larry Green from Lake Tahoe Community College. And I'll be really handing it over to him in just a second. Larry is, he's not the creator of MyOpenMath, but he's the second best thing. David Littman, actually, I guess, he calls David Littman grandfather, if I remember right, Larry, because David Littman is the one who actually authored MyOpenMath. But Larry is a strong contributor, having written many exercises for MyOpenMath and used it for a long time. So he is an expert on it. And so we asked him, he was kind enough to come and share with us his wisdom. And then a couple of us who've been using it for a little while will chime in as well. Probably some of you out there have used it. And we're all just basically going to share together, especially Larry leading us, of our experiences with MyOpenMath and using open educational resources in general. So let me I'll do my brief, like probably 1 minute and a half, why I like MyOpenMath and why I changed from MyMathLab to MyOpenMath. I really like MyMathLab. Let me start with that. I think MyMathLab is an excellent resource. When MyMathLab first came out, you know, the Pearson products, which a lot of math and science teachers use, and some others as well, I was thrilled, and I still think it's excellent. I think it's an excellent resource. It allows, you know, you to change problems, infinite problems where it changes the numbers. I think that's great practice for students. I was very excited. I took surveys of my students when I first started using online homework and asked them if they liked it better than a book or worse than a book or didn't care. I do it anonymously. Like I pass around a piece of paper so I didn't get, you know, peer pressure. So I get the truth. And 80% preferred the online math homework. And I asked them why, and they would always say they love the show me an example button, because whenever they were stuck, they could click show me an example. So anyway, about 3 years ago, I thought about moving to OER to save students money. I looked into MyOpenMath, and I was very pleasantly surprised. I was naturally pretty doubting that a free resource would be nearly as good as a paid resource. That hasn't been my experience in life in general. But MyOpenMath turns out to be excellent. And I actually prefer it to MyMathLab. Even if they were both free or both the same price, I would go with MyOpenMath personally. My main reason is not the money for students, although I'm super glad to save them that money. I actually prefer it mainly because of its quality. So basically, here's my main reason. If good teaching, if it's true that good teaching consists, at least in part, with asking good questions, MyOpenMath has been a big help to my teaching, because the bank of questions is gigantic, because instructors from all over the world contribute questions to it. So whenever I need a good question for a course, I go out to the bank and I have many great choices. Not only that, so that's my first reason. The bank of questions is superior to anything else I've seen. And secondly, you can edit the questions quite easily. I'm not a great programmer, and I tried editing MyMathLab questions, and it was pretty challenging, and I couldn't do much, not without a lot of time and effort. Whereas in MyOpenMath, I easily was able to change and write my own questions and alter the questions that were there. And third, most of the math problems out there have videos already attached. A lot of them by David Littman, a lot of them by Larry Green has done a bunch, and some other people out there. And I found they're very well done. I also make my own videos and attach them, but you don't have to do that. My point is, though, I found it super helpful to my students. As I've surveyed them since using MyOpenMath for the last couple of years, they've said how much they enjoy having a video right there, even better than the show me an example of MyOpenMath. Of MyMathLab. Anyway, there we go. Enough from me. I'm going to switch it over to Larry and let Larry lead us away. And you guys feel free to jump in with questions. We will be Mo and I. Oh, Mo, I didn't introduce you. Mo is my co-host. So Mo and I am not Curly, but Larry, Curly, and Mo. I got to point out Jim's joke is already, all right. It was Jim's idea. I'm just stealing it. But anyway, you can call me Curly. That would be fine. Anyway, so
Only
Mo and I
because
will be
Nate's
watching
not
the
here.
chat.
That's all.
Sorry, what's that?
Only because Nate's not here. He would have said it first.
That's right. He would have. All right. So Mo and I'll be watching the chat, and I'll let Larry take it away. So let me stop sharing my screen, or I'm not sharing my screen.
Yeah.
You can share your screen, Larry. Go ahead.
Yeah. But I figured I just talk for about 10 seconds and then I'll share my screen.
Sure.
So anyway, nice to meet you all. Honestly, I've actually never been to your college, but I've heard of it. And I'll tell you a little history of what's been going on with us. Just like what was said, we started with nothing because when I got to LTCC 27 years ago, and people hadn't heard of that new thing called the internet. So a few years later, maybe 5 or 10 years later, my math lab came out and we were like, yes, this is awesome. The students get to have instant feedback. But there was one big issue. And that is a lot of times, at least in my class, and my guess it might happen in yours too, is that maybe Friday of the first week, the student says, I'm sorry, I can't do the homework because I wasn't able to afford it. I couldn't pay the $150. And what do I tell them? So I am not okay with saying, if you can't afford it, then I'm sorry, you have to drop my class. To me, that is evil, and I won't do it. So I have been very dedicated to making sure that money is never the issue for why a student does not succeed in my class. Okay, I'm not going to say I have a 100% pass rate, but nobody fails because they can't afford the homework system or the textbook or anything else. Everything is 100% free. So several years ago, I found out about this new system called MyOpenMath. And that completely solved the problem. So originally, that is the reason. That's the reason I decided to move to MyOpenMath. Then when I got into it, I realized there's much better reasons. There's other reasons that are also amazing besides just can't afford it. So MyOpenMath is the only option. It turns out MyOpenMath is a community. Whereas if you use my math lab, that's not a community, that's a business. And it's a very different atmosphere. So what I was able to do is able to find other people outside of our college and at our college, but that were also using MyOpenMath, and we formed a community. And so let me give some credit because they're wonderful people. Cindy Moss from Skyline College, Jessica Kawang from Oxnard Community College, and several other people. And we all got together and we were able to create like our dream course as a statewide thing, because one of the things I love about math is that the fundamental theorem of calculus in Tahoe is the same as the fundamental theorem of calculus in Oxnard. It doesn't matter where you are. I've even watched classes in Japan. They have the same fundamental theorem, but of course they speak in Japanese. Other than that, it's all the same. So we're able to be a community, even though we're at different colleges. And MyOpenMath allows us to do it. So what I thought I would do is share my desktop and show you what my syllabus looks like. And I'm not even sure, I think, my guess is a lot of you teach statistics, a lot of you teach calculus, pre-calculus, finite math, or whatever math classes you teach, but lots of different math classes. So I had to pick one. So I'm going to start with statistics because that's actually the first course that we created. And so let me share my desktop. And you can see it. Good, good. Okay, so this is actually my syllabus. And one of the great things about MyOpenMath is it works really well in Canvas. And in fact, I don't know, it was like 10 years ago or so, I was part of the, if you hate Canvas, it's partly my fault because I was on the group. There were 50 of us that voted on Canvas for the operating system. So, but then we wanted to make sure that it had what's called LTI. LTI means that you can embed something into it. And MyOpenMath has what's called an LTI system that lets it go into Canvas. So for the students, they don't even know that there's this other, there's these two systems, Canvas and MyOpenMath, they're using. To them, they just go in and start doing their homework. And I thought I'd show you that light. Okay, so again, this is my statistics class. The only thing I can't show you is my grade book because I think that's against the law, but hopefully that's okay. I can describe it, I just can't show you the people. And by the way, we've started already. This is week 1 of our class. I know your semester, so you probably got a while before you start. So this is it. And one of the things is that everything in the course is 100% free. Because again, Tahoe, I'm not sure exactly about Fresno, but Tahoe, we often call it poverty with a view. It's beautiful here, and there's no really good jobs. So we have a lot of low-income students. But they love looking out their window because it's beautiful. So I want to make sure that everything is free, and everything is free in my class, 100%. So I got all kinds of things, and some of these are embedded in MyOpenMath. Some are like the textbook. The textbook itself is free. But then when you go down, I'll just drop to the bottom so we can take a look. And we can look at an assignment. So for example, let me just jump into a later one because I think they're a little more interesting. Maybe chapter 9, hypothesis test for a single population parameter. Okay. If you're not someone who teaches statistics, you don't know statistics, sorry, you may not understand well, but it is a standard thing that everyone does in the stats class. And for the student, this is what they're going to see. They're just going to see this. It feels like Canvas. They don't know what the words LTI mean, and that's fine. I never even tell them. They hit start. They don't have teacher preview, by the way. That's for us. And here's a problem. Okay, here's a question for them to work on. And what I like about MyOpenMath is, man, it allows you to do just about anything in terms of problem types. So this is a problem that has multiple parts. So as you can see, it says 50% of students entering four-year colleges receive a degree within 6 years. Is this percent larger for students who play in intramural sports? 147 of the 272 students. So the first thing, these numbers, 147 and 272, these are randomized. So if another student does the problem, they're going to get a slightly different problem with the same learning goals. Okay, but they can't just look at someone else's and say, oh, their answer was 3.74, I'll type that in. That doesn't work because things are randomized. Okay, we've done a lot of randomization. In fact, this is actually from a collection of problems, and it randomly picks from like 7 different problems, and it randomly chooses the numbers within the problem, but they're all going to be the same kind of questions. You know, they're all going to say, for the study we should use, you have to select an answer, T or Z. Okay, some of them are going to be T, some of them are going to be Z, and that's all randomized. Okay, and similarly, level of significance is alpha is 0.1. That's randomized also. And I think if I remember, we used 0.1, 0.05, and 0.01 because this is a standard level of significance in stats. I think those are the ones we chose. That can be adjusted if, I don't know, if you for some reason like 0.02 and you can actually change the problem. I don't know why you would, but you could. So it kind of looks like this, and you'll notice that, you know, they have to choose. So if they choose a t-test, then they have to choose h-naught. This is a, you know, is it a mu or is it a p? Okay, so if they choose, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna get some wrong. So p is equal to 0.5, and then h-naught, let's say mu. Right, I'm purposely doing this wrong because I want to show you what happens if you get things wrong. And let's see, larger. So, oops, I'll make it larger. 0.5. Test statistic. Okay, it's a T. And I can't do this in my head. Maybe you can. but let's just pretend 0.3, I don't know. The p-value 0.0542, I don't know. It says, please show your answer to 4 decimal places. Actually, personally, what I do is I say, show your answer to 4 decimal places, but if they get it off a teeny bit because of some round off error that might have happened because they rounded in the wrong time and used a different kind of calculator system, what I do is I make it so that if they get 3 decimals, that's good enough, even though they're like, I tricked them. They think they need 4 and 3 is good enough. And that way I'm not zapping them. I'm not zapping them for a decimal error when that's the only problem. And this is statistics and it's not about that. But you can change that. You know, you can want it to be exact if you want, although that would be a bad idea in stats, but you could do that. I want to mention that please ask questions if you have any about how any of this works. Okay, so you'll notice it has very different parts of a single problem. And you can do that. You can put anything you want in here. P-value is less than alpha based on this. How about accept the null hypothesis? You know, hopefully you all know that's never okay, but I'm gonna get it completely wrong. And then there's some multiple choices here. The computer's not smart enough for the student to write like a full long sentence and it read the sentence and knows, yeah, that's good enough. That computers don't do that. Maybe with like serious artificial intelligence, but that's not happening. So this had to be multiple choice, but that's okay. Pick some more. I'm not reading, I'm just randomly browsing. Submit question. And I didn't get it right. Okay. But what it shows is what I got right, what I didn't get right. If I click this little key, it tells you the right answer. So that the students can actually see where they made the mistakes, what the correct answer should have been had they gotten it right, so that they can learn from their mistakes. And if we grade by hand, that doesn't happen, not because they have to wait like 3 days or however long it takes you to grade their papers. So that's one of the reasons why I really like the computer system is immediately they know what pieces they got wrong. They get to see what the right answer was. I got a 1.33 out of 5 points. Then there are settings that the instructor can actually decide on. We can decide to do a test style problem where that's it. They got it wrong. Sorry, you blew it. You suck and you're gonna fail. You could do that if you want. You can also do a allowed to repeat kind of problem. And you could choose how many times they can repeat. Okay, I tend to do unlimited. My theory is that, hey, if a student wants to keep doing homework for 3 hours, I'm gonna let them keep doing homework because they're gonna keep learning. But that, some people like to say, I'm gonna only give them 3 chances because then they're gonna really take it seriously. That has to do with your teaching style. And I'll show you a little bit how to make those settings happen. But those settings are all possible. You can also say, which I don't do, but you can. If you get it wrong, then there's gonna be a small penalty for trying it again. Maybe you're gonna take 10% off. And you can do that too, and you can choose the penalty. I tend not to do that for homework because I like to allow them to keep trying until they get it. But again, if you wanna, if you have a different teaching style, that's great. That's great, go for it. And it's really easy to change those settings. So I can get a similar problem. Okay, and now you'll notice that it's slightly different. If you read the top paragraph, it's not the same. But it's still a hypothesis test, and it's still for a single variable. So it's got the same learning pieces, but it's a different problem. And the questions are the same style questions. So again, if the student keeps trying, eventually, hopefully they'll get the idea of what they're supposed to do. Okay, but they're not going to memorize like, oh, I need to change my 2 numbers, or that never works. They have to understand the concepts. So that's what a MyOpenMath problem looks like. Okay, and again, this did take me a long time to make. I mean, it's long, but if you want to change it to, you're conducting a study to see the proportion of voters who prefer the Fresno Democratic candidate. That's actually really easy. All you do is you copy the problem and you type the word Fresno right there, and you got your Democratic candidate in Fresno. So you can actually customize it. So it's pretty easy to customize. I'll show you in a bit. If you wanted to like create this from scratch, that's a lot of work. It can be done. Obviously, I've done it. But changing and adjusting it is actually not too hard. And that's something I like a lot about this. So again, this is an example of a stats problem. It works really well. And one of the nice things about MyOpenMath is that even though this is happening in the MyOpenMath system, it's what I mentioned, LTI'd into Canvas. And I apologize, but I can't show you the grade book because it's against the law, because then you see my students' grades. And I can't show that to you. But maybe one of you guys can show each other's without telling anyone, but I'm being recorded, I won't break the law. But I will tell you that there's a grade book, and Canvas and MyOpenMath work together. So my MyOpenMath will grade it, and then it will automatically send it into the Canvas grade book. So you don't have to do anything. In fact, once you've imported the MyOpenMath course at the, before class starts, you never even need to look at MyOpenMath if you don't want to. There's some reasons why you might want to, but you don't have to if all you care about is the percent that the students got on their grade, because that gets put right into Canvas and it's there. So it's really nice. It's really nice, very efficient. So again, this is an example, and I thought I'd show you, start with an example. And again, please ask questions. I don't want to just be talking for, an hour or whatever without, having conversations.
Yeah, thank you, Larry. Let me jump in and say, yes, please do ask questions. We want to be able to help you in a way that's helpful to you and not just do our own thing, like Larry said. Also, can I, real quick, could you put your name in the chat box? I honestly don't think it's necessary. The whole thing's going to be recorded. They'll know who was on Zoom, but I just want to take every precaution to make sure you've got credit for being here. So, because I will be saving the chat discussion as well.
Let me put my name. I'm going to do more than that, even though you didn't ask me to. But I like to do this because I like to help people. My name is Larry Green, and my email, in case you have any questions. I like to use my Gmail account because it never goes down. The college is not as reliable. So I'm going to put my name and my email in case you have any questions about MyOpenMath. And I'll always be happy. And I don't mean just now, but like next week or something. I'm not going anywhere. Although we do live in Tahoe with a lot of snow, and if it takes a day, that means that we have no power, because that happens a lot in our town. And it probably doesn't have, you probably don't get a whole lot of snow in Fresno, just a guess. We get dumped last month. So I'm going to apologize in advance just in case, because it does happen sometimes. So again, this is an example of it being used in stats. Okay, and we have created, let me, I'm going to go and I'm going to show you the MyOpenMath system now. So this is MyOpenMath. I'll tell you, there's one thing I don't like about MyOpenMath. It's a .com. Even though there's no money involved. I'm not sure why David made it a MyOpenMath.com, but the URL, which I'll also put that in the chat, is MyOpenMath.com. So that's the URL to MyOpenMath. And when you go to that, this is what it's going to basically look like. And the first thing you're going to want to do is request an instructor account. So you click on this button, request an instructor account. Okay. It says what kind of institution you work for and a college or university. Where is it located? United States. Select your state, California. It's not hard or anything. Please enter in the name of your institution. You'll enter in, Fresno Community College. Is that what it's called? Fresno City College? Whatever it is.
Yeah, Fresno City College.
Yeah. So Fresno City College, you put that in. The important thing is it's gonna ask you for a URL. If there's a URL of the college website that has your name on it, it's like right away they'll give you the account, because what they do is they research to make sure you actually are there. Okay, so that's something that is I recommend, is making, if you can find a web page that has your name on it that's from the official college, then it's faster, because then they don't have to like, you know, research and do anything like that. They just click on it, they see you, and they say, good, let you in. So let you know that that's something that when you first get your account, that's a recommendation I've got. So I'm not going to go through all this. It's pretty easy though, because I don't want to apply for another account. I actually have several. And the reason I have several, you won't have several. I have several because I had a grant. I don't know, it was about 4 or 5 years ago, something like that. And it was pre-COVID. And what I did is I had a group of about a dozen faculty members from all over California, and we created courses in MyOpenMath that went to all the courses that we teach. So we created, this was pre-AB 705, so we actually did create a pre-algebra, a basic algebra, an intermediate algebra. Nowadays, we're like almost not allowed to teach those classes, but that's another story. And we created the pre-calculus, trigonometry, college algebra, whatever you want to call it. We created the entire calculus sequence. You call it Calc 1, Calc 2, Calc 3, possibly. That might be your names. We created statistics. So we created a course for each of all the courses basically that we teach. And we associated that course to the OpenStax textbook. And we use that, we use that textbook because it is the most supported textbook there is for open educational resources. So there is a course for each OpenStax textbook. So the problem's actually linked to the textbook pages, which I'll show you a bit. So I needed to create, I couldn't let them into my personal site because then they could see my students and stuff. So I needed to create some special websites for that thing. And when you do go into MyOpenMath, so now we're in, it's going to show you a lot of things. One, if it's your first time, you're not going to see everything we're seeing because you don't have any classes. I have my current courses. Everyone uses MyOpenMath, except linear algebra. And then my past courses, I have a lot of them. Goes on and on and on. But I want to show you, and there's some messages for me. I've been using it so many years. They're saying, you know, it's going to be cleaned a little bit because it's so old. But then there's also forum. And I really love the forum. If you ever have a question about MyOpenMath, usually someone's already asked it. You can search and you can find the answer. But if no one's asked it, then you can post onto the forum. And this is what's so great about MyOpenMath. This is a community. None of us get paid for this. And someone is going to answer your question. Okay, someone's going to answer your question and you'll get that question answered. Okay, and usually it doesn't take even an hour for someone to answer your question because there's just so many people in this community. I've answered some. So some people like they're on it like in 10 seconds you answer the question. And these are the most recent questions. So for example, Canvas of Science trying to link to 2 different courses from the same assignment. How do you do that? And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but this is it. And you'll notice that it was asked at 7:35 a.m. by 2:36 p.m. So it's never a day. David Littman answered it. And then there's a whole conversation going on. And this is for us. This is so that we can get help when we need help with MyOpenMath, if we don't understand something. And David Littman is, as he mentioned, that MyOpenMath is also called MOM, MyOpenMath, M-O-M. So I like to think of David Littman as the father of MOM, which makes him grandfather. That's why he's called grandfather. I call him that. That's my thing. I don't think anyone else does that. He's a really good guy, and he's on it. Boy, you ask, and he's just going to answer. It's really cool. And sometimes someone else answers, which is fine too. That's how it should be. You know, can't make him, you know, do everything in the world. You have to let, you know, everyone help. Okay, I've answered a few times, and I've asked a lot of questions too. So there's like I said, there's a whole forum for getting help with MyOpenMath. There's also a course on learning how to use MyOpenMath. And let me go back home. I think that's in courses you're taking. There's a support course. So if I click on support course, then this is nice. It has all the different things that you're going to do for your class. Okay. So how do I's, for example, teaching discussion. I really like, there's all kinds of different types of things. And you just enroll a course. Everything's free, by the way. You don't have to pay for anything. So if you click how do I, then these are the forums on the how do I questions. Okay. And you'll notice there's a lot of them. There's 120 pages of questions. So you can, by searching, type in a few words, you'll find whatever you need, basically. So that's the support course. There's also a training course. That's for the very first time. Before you even start doing MyOpenMath, this will show you how to use MyOpenMath. Again, I only have an hour. This one you can, you know, spend as much time as you want learning all the details. So there's a whole course, there's a whole set for assessment settings, for example. And here's a 13-minute video on how to use the assessment settings in MyOpenMath. Okay, and I'll show you the basics of that. I don't have time to show you 5 hours of support courses or whatever, but it's really great. It's really, really good. So MyOpenMath has a lot of support, a lot of help for new people and advanced people. You know, I'll post a question. It's like, you know, I'm pro coding this, and this line of code doesn't seem to be working. Any such, you know, any ideas? And then Dave will say, oh yeah, there's a bug in the system, and I fixed it 10 minutes ago. Try it again. So that kind of stuff does happen once in a while, and Dave, it's like on it. So really good. So that's what it looks like. I want to show you what also looks like. So I have my current courses. I showed you stats class. Let me show you a past course. Let me show you a calculus course, because you might be interested in calculus. And calculus problems look a lot different than a statistics class in terms of the type of thing you have to do. There's a lot of graphing and equations to type in, much more mathy looking than stats when it comes to questions. So I think it's worthy to look at what questions look like in calculus. Okay, so this is Calc 2, by the way. Okay, it's kind of Calc 2. Tahoe's on the quarter system. So we have a course on integration, basically. A course on differentiation, a course on integration, and then we have a course on power series and multivariate and partial derivatives. So we're a little different, but there's courses and everything that you'll find your semester courses too. Okay, so if we look for, I don't know, how about techniques of integration, maybe integration by parts. I'll do student preview. Here's a little true false question. Okay, here's I can't do these in my head, sorry. But use the technique of integration by parts. And here, and this, if you've done my math lab, it's similar to that. There's a full equation system, equation editor. So students actually type in whatever it is, which I don't, sorry if I can't do this like in 5 seconds in my head. Maybe y'all can, but I would have to write this down. It would take a minute, and I don't want to waste your time, but you can go say x squared. I did it with the caret, but you can also do x, and you can click the button and then do the 2, and that'll work. It basically does all of the mathematics that you would do. Okay, so there's no problem. There's no problem with this. And the way it works, so let's say you did x squared plus sine of x. I hope you all know that's not the answer to this question. But if you did x squared plus sine of x and you submitted the question, what it does, which I really like, is it randomly grabs, I think it's like 100 numbers. And if plugging in those 100 numbers into what you typed in gives the same answer within like 5 decimal places as plugging in 100 numbers into the right answer, then it marks it right. So if the answer, again, this one, maybe I should have chosen an easy one I could do in my head. But if the answer is, let's say, I don't know, x cubed plus x, and the student types x plus x cubed, the computer will know that's right, because the computer puts in 100 numbers and it'll always get the right answer. It doesn't look to make sure that you have the same exact format. On the other hand, there are ways of enforcing format. So for example, if you're teaching an algebra class and you are asking them to simplify x squared times x cubed, and the student types in x squared times x cubed, then if you think about that, plug in 100 numbers, it'll always be right. But there's ways of saying, but the answer has to have a 5 in it. And that's all coded into the problems on those kind of problems. So that if it's a simplified kind of problem, the problem is going to know not to accept non-simplified answers. It's actually pretty brilliant. Okay, and again, I'm not the grandfather, but I can say it's brilliant. I'm not the one that coded that. But there are ways of coding. I know how to make those problems, but I'm not the one that came up with the idea. So the idea is you can enforce format or not enforce format, and that's up to you. Okay, and you can grab a problem that, if you don't know how to code, then you can grab a problem that does enforce or doesn't enforce. And there's different problems like that. It's really nice and really important, okay? Because there are times when you want to enforce a format, and there's times that you really don't care. Like I don't care when it's just finding an integral, but I do care when it's simplifying. Okay, so that's, to me, that's important. Okay, so it's nice. Now, what I don't have time, by the way, is to do all of the coding and teach you how to code everything, because that's not a 1 hour thing. coding stuff. And I've been coding for 30 years, by the way. So not coding MyOpenMath because it hasn't existed that long, but so I do a lot of coding and coded whatever I can. So that's it's a really nice piece. It's a really nice piece of MyOpenMath is that you can do that. You can enforce an answer or not enforce an answer. It's totally your choice. Okay, and again, so here's questions. And you can put in as many as you want. Let me go back and show you the kind of instructor creation way of looking at it, somewhat creation at least. Let me go back. So if I use this little gear icon and I go to questions, then this will give the how to create an assignment. And what I do is I copy somebody else's assignment. Sometimes I smile and I say, awesome, and I say, go, and I'm done. And sometimes I say, you know, there's a few things I want to modify, and then I modify them. So I want to show you some of the things that you can do. So something I love about this is, see this word group? So this is group choosing one without replacement. So what it's going to do is there are 4 different problems. And when a student does the assignment, it is going to randomly select one of the 4 of the problems. And that's the problem that student's going to get. If a different student does it, they're going to get a randomization of one of the 4, and there's only a 25% chance they'll see the same problem. And not only that, you'll see this, x to the n e to the ax. So what this is telling you is that A turns out to be a randomized variable. So even if two people get the same answer, and the same one of these four, they're going to almost certainly going to get different letters A. So if I preview this, you'll see x cubed e to the 9 x dx. I just previewed it again. Check it out, x to the 7th e to the 4x dx. It's a different problem, isn't it? Because it randomized the powers.
Larry, I just want to jump in real quickly here,
Sure.
because when you do click on the preview button, I believe that's opening up a pop-up window.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And that's not
That's
shared.
right. Oh, yeah, I always forget about that with Zoom. That is kind of a pain. So trust me, what I just said. How's that? I could do the share and unshare and then reshare, and that, you know, maybe I'll do that. Well, let's see, that always takes some time. Where is it? Oh, it's not showing the screen. Well, I'll just let you trust me. How's that? Sorry about that. Thanks for telling me. So I'm telling you what's happening is that I'm looking at another question, and what it did is it randomized the two powers. So that if a student tries it again, not only do they get a randomization of questions, you know, 1 through 4, and they only get one of those and they'll get a different one probably, but also even if they happen to get the same one, they'll get different powers, and it's not even the same problem. But it's the same skills. And that's what we're testing people on, okay, or giving them homework on, is how to learn the skills. So what we try to do is group together skills and then embed them in that kind of randomization piece. It works great, works really great, okay. And sorry if you can't see it. When you were able to see it when I previewed the whole assignment. So if I re-previewed, you'd see a slightly different assignment. Okay, so that is that. If I click on this little guy, and I want to warn you, this may scare you. If you hate computer code, you're about to see it, but I figure it's worth seeing what it looks like. If you like coding, then you'll smile. If not, you might, you know, try not to run away. So this is what the code looks like. Okay, it's pretty simple. But I figured I'd show you a few things, some of the things that you can do. So answer box size is 20. So you can actually decide how big a box you want the student to have to put their stuff in. You know, if you made 60, then it's a bigger size. And you can change that if you didn't like the size of the box. It's really easy to change that. N, $N, $A are different random numbers between 3 and 9. So it's going to pick two numbers. They're not the same two numbers between 3 and 9. And that is what the problem is going to give randomized. So notice that, you know, it's very unlikely they'll get the same problem. And even with the group of 4, you even divide that by 4. And basically, they're not going to see the same problem twice. Okay. And then we'll see /int. So now it's LaTeX, basically. So it's the integral of x to the power natural log of the number times that x dx. And the answer happens to be natural log of the number times x. And then there's show answer. And that's when they click on that key to see the answer. And it says, make pretty display. And that way, when the student sees the answer, it doesn't have all those carrots and stuff. It actually shows it in a pretty way. So it's really nice. And then down, so that's the code part. Then there's the question part, and I can toggle editor because it's easier to read. It's much easier to do with toggle editor. And then this is just basically the sentence. And you can change the sentence really easily. You just change the words, okay? If you don't like using the technique of integration parts, you must carefully choose which expression is you. I don't know. If you liked, for some reason, when you use the technique of integration parts, you could change it to when you use. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but if you want to do that, you could do that. And it's really easy. So you can modify it in any way you want. And that's what's so great about OER. Open Educational Resources means that you have the right to make any change you want, and you never even have to ask permission. You can just do it, okay? And it's wonderful. It's wonderful. So you can localize it for your needs in whatever kind of problem you have. And that's all there is to it, basically. Okay, let me go back. I'm not going to get into the details, but if we click this, you can set, yeah, exactly. You can set it to choose 2 questions instead of 1 question. You can set it to choose 4 questions. I don't know why you do that instead of just have 4 questions, but if it's 4 out of 4, it doesn't do a whole lot of randomization. But you can choose it to, I guess it would change the order maybe. You could edit a personal copy in that. So if you click edit a personal copy, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to like make the system even have more junk in it. But if you edit a personal copy, that's where you change the wording or whatever you want to change with it. So if you didn't like that it got randomized between 2 and 9, and you wanted to like have powers up to 50, you can make it 2 to 50 if you want. Okay, just in case, whatever works for your class. And then there's some more. There's withdraw. I'm not going to do that. That's if you're in the middle of the class, you hit withdraw. That takes the problem away from the whole homework assignment for all students. So it'll give you a big warning. Are you sure you want to do that? Okay. Rescore a question. That's if you want to, change the student scores. You can do it this way too. There's lots of ways. Let me hit change settings, because then you're going to see the settings of the problem. Again, there are so many options that you can do. Okay, you could just use whatever's the default and not have to worry about it, but you can do what you want. Okay, so you can change the number of points for this problem. The default is 10 points. You can make it 9 points if that make you feel better. Okay, you can change the tries allowed on each version of the problem. So I let them only have 1 try on a problem, and then if they choose try again, it gives them a different problem with the same idea. But if you want, you can let them try the problem a 2nd time, the same problem, or a 3rd time, or a 4th time. And that's totally up to you. Really easy to do that. You could give a penalty on the try. So you can say 20% loss if you have to try it, a 2nd time, 40% for the 3rd time because it's 20% each time. So that's totally up to you also. I let them try a similar problem. The default is 100 versions. Honestly, if a student is going to try a problem more than 100 times, I think they need psychological counseling help. So 100 works for me, but that's up to you guys. But you can allow them to try a similar problem or not. Okay. For example, for exams, they don't get to try a similar problem. They do the problem, it's over. But for my homework, I let them try a similar problem. Yeah, you could do it not just for the single problem. Usually what you do for the whole assignment. And do what's called mass change, or when you do it at the very beginning. Okay. You can show the answers during the assessment or not. So in other words, after they get the answer, do you want them to see after they get their feedback, do you want them to see the answer? I let them see the answer, but you can not let them see the answer if you want. Show work boxes. I do that. Really, the show work boxes I do for tests, but I don't do for homework. But you can have them do a show work box so that they have to show the work, and then you can go and look at them and maybe give credit for the work done. Okay, it's a lot of work on your part, by the way, because then you have to read each person's work. And there's hints and video buttons of text. You can choose to block those. I do that for tests, but I don't do it for homework. Okay, and you do what you want. I've never used a rubric, so I don't have a whole lot to say about the rubric. I don't use a specific rubric, but you can, I guess. If I hit advanced, it can do a few more. I don't think you'll ever do changing the C. That has to like changing the randomization, how it works and stuff. I never needed that. So I wouldn't recommend doing that. So I'm going to get rid of this. So that is an example of how this works. Any questions on what an assignment kind of looks like in the MyOpenMath set? Then I'm going to show you, I'm going to log out so I can log into not my class, can log into our Teams group where it doesn't have individual students or anything like that. That way I can show you everything. What do you want to see? Statistics, calculus, pre-calc, algebra, what would you like to see?
Larry, maybe at some point, could you show the resources that are out there? Like if an instructor was to want to create a course or just a few problems like Jim asked in the chat.
Yeah, that's what I'm about to do.
Great.
But I needed to get out of my course because I can't do it in my course because that course is in progress. Once it's in progress, you can't like redo the whole course. Stats. Okay, so someone wants to see stats. So I can go to OER stats. So this is my Teams group. And that way I can do that. But a course that's in progress, you can't, for good reason, you can't go and change the whole course while students are in the middle of it. It could be a disaster if you did that. So there's a lot of stops on this. That's why I'm going to this particular one. So that's exactly what I'm doing. So I'm going to go to by chapter. It's the one I use. So first thing, if this is the course, and let me show you. So now we're going to see when we can actually modify and change and stuff and really do stuff instead of a course that's in progress. So now if I go to, I don't know, linear regression, doesn't matter. And I go to questions. If I want to add a question to this, let's say I want to add a question on linear regression that might be, I don't know, how about correlation? Then I could type in the word correlation in the search bar. And there's a lot of things I can choose. I'm going to go to all libraries. And check this out. These are all problems about correlation. So if you don't think there's enough, you're way too picky. These are all correlation problems. It goes on and on. The ones that are blanked out, those are the ones I already have in my class. It goes on and on and on. And by the way, these are just the first 200 of them that I showed. I could show more. There's so many problems on correlation. And they usually have a pretty good description. You know, if the author of the problem wrote a good description, then you have a good description of what it is. So, and you can preview it. Oh, sorry, that won't work for you guys. But if you click preview, it shows you the problem. Okay. And if I click it, I'm not going to do this because I don't want to add it to the course, but I'm going to show you what you would do. Let's go up to the top. Wait, is it top or bottom? I'm trying to remember. This is the new framework. No. Yeah, you click it and then you add the question. Okay, I'm not going to add a question, by the way, so I'm going to not do that. But you can also add a new question. That's if you're a coder, though. Beware of add a new question because that means you got to use the coding and create your own question. So that you can do. The other thing you can do, let's see. I can change the settings for the entire course instead of one problem for the whole section. Oh, I'm sorry. I think I have to check some. I can check them all. There we go. And change settings. And let's see. I think you can't see that, right?
We can see it.
You can see the box? Okay. I never know what pop-ups you can see and what you can't see with Zoom. You never know on the, because to me it is a pop-up, but I guess it's not a pop-up. So then it has all the problems and you can change the settings on all the different problems. And it's really easy to do that, no problem. I'm not going to change settings, by the way, because this is the course. You can also, if I go home, so let me show you, this is really important. I can add a new course. All right, so somebody wanted industrial math, okay. Just to let you know, depends on what kind of industrial math. I actually just finished a project with Ohio, believe it or not, on mathematics of wastewater management. So there's a course now on mathematics of wastewater management in MyOpenMath.
Yeah, so in my area, you might think of it as a mechanical engineering without calculus.
Mhm.
So you know they need you know, real basic problems, you know, water tank pressure problems, things like that.
Mhm.
Some of them are still struggling with powers of 10 and units. You know, what's the difference between mega and micro,
Mhm.
those sort of things. And I'm always looking for problem sets like that.
Right, and unfortunately, I don't teach that class, so I haven't played around looking for it.
It would be like to my engineering colleagues, it would be like the problems that you would have, some problems in mechanical engineering courses.
Yeah, which I haven't taught that either. Sorry.
Okay.
So I'm not an expert. I'm not the best person for that because I haven't taught it. Okay, but there are all kinds of different types. So if we look at, let's see, what might be the closest type of thing to that?
Somebody said in the chat box, pardon me, they said technical math courses.
Yeah, I wonder if it's liberal arts, quantitative reasoning, maybe. Maybe other. Let's do other too, because it sounds like an other.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. If you do other, there are
Yeah.
some classes called technical math, but I've never actually
Yeah.
looked at them, so I don't know what's in them.
So if I click on other, so I haven't, so personally, I have not looked at these.
Okay.
But these are, here's technical mathematics.
All right.
Here's, let's see what else we got. T math, that might be, yeah, technical mathematics. There's another one.
Yeah.
Here's another T math. Okay, like I said, the great thing, this is a community. So people have made just about everything.
Thank
Like
you.
I said, the one I just do, I like to say it was just a bunch of crap. Math for wastewater management and how to deal with crap and why.
Yeah,
Sewage system.
that's sort of helpful. We do some drainage systems, so.
Mhm. So let's see what we got. So if I, let me just grab, I don't know, technical mathematics with calculus. You want without calculus, right?
Yeah, I could always edit out the
Yeah. So you can preview the course.
Yeah.
And this will show you what they look like. And again, I've never been here, so I don't know what this class looks like at all. Because we don't teach, we're a really small college, so we can't teach classes like that because we wouldn't get enough students.
Right.
But you can, you're bigger, I think you're a bigger college. Right? I don't know how big you are, but I know you're bigger than us.
We used to be a big college. We're not sure anymore.
So you can look at a homework set. And again, I don't know what I'm getting into, so.
Yeah, that's about right.
Okay, so there you go. So what you do is you copy it, and anything you don't like, it's really easy to remove a problem. And it's really easy to find new problems if you just type in a search. Very simple to do that. Okay. If you can import an individual assignment also, as was mentioned, what Mo mentioned. So you can, if there's missing an assignment, but you can find an assignment from another course, you can actually import that.
Sure.
And you can combine two courses. And
Yeah,
I've actually done that.
Yeah, that definitely works. The you know, the perimeter of, you know, like floor plans and things like
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
How many 2x4s, you know, whatever.
Mhm. Yeah. So there you go. And again, you can combine things, you can grab new problems, you can do whatever you want with it. Okay.
Thank you.
Larry, somebody just asked about math for liberal arts, and I believe you said in another session I was with you in that you created a class maybe a half a year ago or a year ago, math for liberal arts, or was that for teachers actually?
Teachers. So
Yeah,
we
okay, I guess
created,
that's
so
different.
when you're thinking is a math for teacher education, mathematics teacher education.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So that's a little different than, is there some resources for liberal arts?
Yeah. And in fact, the reason why we didn't create a math for liberal arts is there was already some really good ones. And I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. So that's already there. So we can go and look at that if you want. Let's go back. Let's go back home. And again, if we add a new course, and if we go to template or promoted, and if we go to liberal arts, there's a lot of them. And these are the templated ones. It doesn't mean these are the only ones around. These are the ones people felt comfortable about basically saying, hey, everyone can look at my class, anyone can look at a class, but these are the ones that are like announced.
How would we find the ones that are not templated?
So those are the ones that you ask around. So if there's something that you didn't find the template, you probably would pop it into the that discussion post that I showed you at the beginning and saying, hey, I'm looking for this. Does anyone know of a class that covers this? And then someone will give you the course ID number. And let's close this. You can do it with a course ID number. It's blank. And then you, let's see, starting with, yeah, enrollment. You do the, oh no, this is a new course. Sorry, that's not what I want. I want to go to my or my colleagues' courses. You type in the ID, and that's going to be some big long number, and then it'll give you that course.
Okay, so you would just post on the forum your desire, and then somebody responds with some different course IDs, and you can check those out.
Exactly, exactly. So if you didn't find a good one from a template or promoted course, then post on the forum, and almost always someone will give you one. Sometimes it's me. Yeah, so there's so many, I mean, there's really courses for just about everything. That's what's cool about it. It's just there. It's awesome. So MyOpenMath does a lot of stuff. It does a lot. And again, I can't show you everything. I mean, unless you want to see the details of code and stuff like that. But I'm thinking that this group is not an expert MyOpenMath group, right? Where you haven't been, all coding it for like a long time. Most of you are new to this, right? So I don't want to scare you.
Right. And so Larry, and you also pointed out that you could easily grab part of a course or combine courses and edit the problems.
Yep.
You don't have to just take one course that somebody did, that you can easily modify and combine.
It's real easy to modify, and it's really easy to get rid of a whole section, just delete a section. It's really easy to add a section. That's simple. Again, I can't show you every detail because I don't have time, but you can do all that stuff. And if you go through that little course I showed you at the beginning, then they'll show you how to do everything. There's a little learning curve. There's definitely a a learning curve, but it's not something you can't learn. It's just something, it does take time. But I'll tell you, once you've done it, it's so much easier. Okay, are there courses for physics of music? I have no idea, actually, sorry. Or math for music. I'm not sure. I'm not even taught anything close to that. There might be. I didn't see in the promoted class. That's a very specific class. I'm not sure. So I don't have an answer to that one. That sounds cool.
Could you, so some thoughts I have, but we could do whatever you think is best, is it might be nice to see some of the ways, for example, GeoGebra is used, embedded into MyOpenMath problems, or some of the textbook apps you said you've created for calculus that fit into a textbook, or any other things people would like to see. Feel free to chime in. We have about 15, or no, we only have like 8 minutes left here.
Just things that are not necessarily MyOpenMath.
Well, within MyOpenMath, some problems are using GeoGebra and probably other apps as well. I just think it's a nice feature, but we don't have to do that.
One of the things I'll tell you with MyOpenMath, though, they have one I didn't show you is they have a really good geometry, like graphing capabilities. You can have problems, and I didn't show you one of those, and I probably should. That's something I haven't shown you, and that's a biggie. So let's see, that would be, trying to think of a course that has that. How about go to pre-calc. Now I just gotta come on in. And now I gotta find one of graphing. Let's see. Equation, polynomial rational function. Maybe that one. Let's see. Graph of exponentials. Yeah, this one should do it. There's also video assignments. So you can have them watch a video and then they have to answer a couple questions about the video. So let me find a problem that uses graphing. Watch, I'll pick one that doesn't have any. Sorry. Oh, come on. It's gotta be something. I think I chose the wrong set. Sorry about this. Yeah, let's go to conics. Chapter 12. There we go. How about the parabola? So one thing is you can display a graph real easily. And that could be randomized, by the way. That's all randomized, which is nice. But hoping I can find one we actually have to graph something. Sorry if I'm not grabbing it. All right, that didn't work. Ah, here we go, found one. Okay, so here's a question that says, draw a circle with an equation, x squared plus 2x plus y squared minus 4y equals 4. And you draw a circle, and you could actually have them like choose what they want to draw. If they, if you want to say, instead of draw a circle, is draw this, and they have to know to be a circle, and you can have a button for parabola and ellipse and whatever. And if they don't choose the right one, it'll zap them. But here's one where it's just draw the circle. So here you need to draw the circle. You click on the center, you drag it, and it makes a circle out of it. Isn't that kind of cool? And let's see, and in fact, this is going to be, the center will be at -1, 2, I think. And then we're adding 1, 5, 9, 3. One, 2, 3. There we go. And we can submit. And I got it right. See, that one I was able to do in a few seconds. Integration by parts, that takes me a little longer. And if you get it wrong, it shows you wrong. So, so it's got a really nice system for graphing, which is really great. You can also embed certain things like GeoGebra. CalcPlot 3D gets embedded in. Usually I use this graphing tool because it works pretty well. And it's pretty easy to work with. And what I always do is I never make my own. I start with someone else's and then adjust it. That's easier than try to remember how to do all the graphing stuff. I just find a graphing one that someone else has done and then change the equation. And then I make my own problem that way. But you don't have to do that. You can just find a good problem and let that one happen. You don't have to change it at all. So yeah, so that's a graphing type of thing. I have not done much with the GeoGebra. I know you can be done, but I'm probably not the perfect person to demonstrate how to put GeoGebra in, but it can be done. Other questions, other suggestions or thoughts? Because we have a few minutes left.
So Larry, I just like to share that I've used MyOpenMath for tests during this whole virtual learning. And one really neat feature that I figured out kind of late in the game is that when you grade a test, you can actually go through and grade all of the same questions at once for every student. Instead of having to grade every student, like all the questions for every student, you can grade all problem number 1. And so you'll kind of it'll be more efficient in grading in that sense. And then, each student's score will be updated as you go through. So something that, instructors that are teaching online right now, if they want to use this as a test tool, it actually is really beneficial in terms of grading in a sense as well.
Yeah, exactly. And one more thing that I do with grading in MyOpenMath is I'll do some problems that are computer graded, and then some problems where they have to type a bunch of show work stuff in there or whatever, approve or something. And the computer will grade, 2/3 of the test, and I grade the other 1/3 of the test. And I do it, as you said, one problem at a time. One thing, it's more equitable. That way you are not playing favorites because you don't even, you're just doing the problem. You know what I mean? Instead of grading this student and then this student. I like to not even know who the student is. I just want to grade without, trying to do that because it's more equitable. The other thing that we did in our group, and this is really cool, is that there's word problems where, it'll say, I don't know, Mark, was building a swing set and blah, blah, blah. So instead of Mark, what we did is we used a random name, and there's a random name method in MyOpenMath, and it puts in much more diversified, much more diversity into the problems. And it will grab, it'll randomize. And sometimes you might see Mark, and sometimes you'll see, Maria, or sometimes you'll say Jose, or sometimes it'll be, Suqua, but it's really nice because it allows you to put in equity, equity and inclusion and diversity stuff. And that's a good thing. And MyOpenMath allows you to do that, which is nice. Other things that you want to hear about? I don't have too much time. As I mentioned, we're on Friday of week 1 already. I'm teaching in 15 minutes. I'm teaching a support course for statistics. And fortunately, it's right across the hallway, but I do have to eventually turn on the computer and get it set up. And you know how that is with teaching. But I do teach. I don't do this for a living. This is just extra. I don't get paid for this. I just do this for fun. Teaching, I get paid for though. I have to say I get paid for grading because that's the part I don't like. It's no fun.
Yeah, it looks like we're about to run out of time. Larry, I'm personally very thankful for all the work you've done. As I said, I've benefited a lot from MyOpenMath and the contributions you and others have made. And I thank you for giving your time to us all today. And Larry did put his email contact in the chat. If anybody needs to see that, let me know, me or Mo, we can give you that information. Larry's very responsive if you email him with questions. And yeah, I think we're at time now, and we want to let everybody's got other things to do, and you've got a class to teach. We don't have that, but you have
And
a
you're
class.
probably not looking out the window and seeing snow coming down outside.
No, not
That's what it
us in
looks like outside
Fresno.
for me.
We didn't ski to work either, though. You have some nice
Yeah,
benefits.
it's snowing right now.
All right. Well, thank you again. Thank you so much, Larry. And thank you all for joining us. And hang out if you have questions for Mo or I. We'll be able to hang out for a couple of minutes